Yo, what up, man?
Yo, what's up?
What's up, man? Long time no see. How you been?
Good. Let me just make sure we're good to go on my end with the audio. Uh, can you talk a little bit?
Yep, I'm right here.
A little bit. Okay. I don't think that worked. I basically, so I'm on oh wait. I know what I need to do. I know I'm not using Streamlabs. I'm using StreamYard,
Oh, okay.
and that shit is Streets. So let me do one thing a little
Yo,
bit
oh
different.
shit. You've been using Stat the whole time?
What's that?
You've been using StreamYard this whole time?
No. But wait, let me see this. Okay, I think this should work. Okay, let's try this again. Try this again. Say something.
Hello. Testing
Say something.
mic, seeing if it works.
Hello. There we go. We're good to go. Okay, cool. No, I used Streamlab for a while, and then Streamlabs. I don't know why. It just kind of like would always like I would have my stream drop, and I would like have like terrible streaming issues, even though I have really good Wi-Fi.
Oh,
Like I have
really?
fiber, so I just kind of
I
gave
think
up.
it's like it's probably the settings with like the bit rate, and you have to like actually manually do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Like you got to set the FPS, the bit rate, all that kind of stuff.
I did that, and it was good for a while, and then I like when it wasn't good, I reached out to Streamlabs support and Twitch support, and
Yeah.
like Twitch support basically said like, oh, like that's a Streamlabs issue. So I reached out to them, and then they helped me, and it was good for a little bit, and then it just like I don't know, I had the same problem. But StreamYard
Damn.
honestly works for most things, and apparently now works well for this. So
Oh,
it's
nice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, it's good to have you here. I wanna introduce you to my audience. So this is Haas from Infrared. For those of you who do not know Infrared, I mean I've talked about, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what Infrared is like as a whole, like as a collective, if you define it as such. But you guys have a YouTube, you have a Pop in Discord, you have the Twitch where you mostly hang out. And I want to put these up on the screen for everyone so
Oh,
you
I
know where
appreciate it,
to
man.
go. Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, I can't because I'm already okay. No, StreamYards is a bit streets. Okay, so yeah, just explain it like what infrared is, who you are, for everyone who isn't familiar with your work.
Sure. So we started out as kind of like a collective trying to do a podcast. We've been together for like many years now, probably like 5, 6 years. And we just kind of share a very different vision of the world, from a perspective of politics and ideology than most of the kind of leftists in Western countries that we've encountered. And our kind of perspective is very informed more from like perspectives in non-Western countries, right? And we
Uh,
thought that people here in America and elsewhere were doing a really bad job of translating Marxist-Leninist ideas from these non-Western countries to the West. So we wanted to do a different approach to that, and yeah, we wanted to like I guess give people a different idea of what Marxism Leninism is, as opposed to the kind of mainstream. Like we wanted to show people that there's another side to this that's not really being given adequate representation. Um, so our basic shtick is that we want to have unique perspectives on things. We don't want to like we see that there's something wrong with the current approaches, and we also align ourselves with the global phenomena of populism. We consider this to be something the left has really lagged on as far as being able to make sense of it and lead, you know?
mhm. Yeah, you guys offer, and I recently watched the Stalin video you put out. That was really well done. But you guys offer something that really hasn't been offered by any content creator on the left at the quality that you're producing it at. which I think is super important because, like, if your goal is to get out this information to as many people as possible and to make it meet people where they're at, is a good way of putting it. Then it has to be relatable. It has to be good content, and you do a really good job of that. And your stream is funny as hell. So that's entertaining as well. And you also debated Vosh, right? You
Yeah,
fucking
so it's a
debated.
funny story with that. So the day it happened, I just had people message me like, "Hey, do you want to debate Vosh?" And I was like, I considered this like a long-term goal, right? So I was like, "Really? Now? Or like in 15 minutes?" I was given like a 15-minute heads up, and I was like, "Okay, let's do it." Um so I got on, and I was super aggressive, like, because I just thought that this is the biggest debate lord on YouTube right now, and it's like I considered him the final boss, so I was just going at it, and after like 12 minutes he just left the call. you
Yeah,
know,
similar to how mine ended up too. I mean, the dude, literally, if there's anyone that ever debates him to his left, who's like a moderately good debater, just immediately like rage quit. That's all he can do.
Yeah, I really don't think he has a sense of pride. Most of us have a sense of like pride. Like if we get challenged and we want to end up, but Vosh has actually been pretty transparent in the past about the fact that for him the only thing that matters is furthering his specific political agenda. And he said like he's willing to lie, he's willing to be dishonest as long as it fulfills his goal. That's why he says things like, "I don't do debates unless I know I'm going to win." Like, so that's kind of
Yeah,
the person we're dealing with there. Yeah. So
and he still gets smacked. He still gets smacked.
yeah. Well, like I said, he started that debate with you, and he laid it out what he thought. He said, you know, if by the end of this you don't agree with me, it's because you're mentally ill. Like he was that confident that he
Yeah,
just had it in the bag.
yeah, yeah. Um, well, yesterday you did a really interesting stream in which you pained yourself listening to Hassan Piker for like I don't even know how long. It was a while, but you were listening and talk about basically lie about Marxism to his however many hundreds of thousands of viewers, and then they posted the video on YouTube, and it has racked up another of several. I think it's like 150,000 views on YouTube already.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Wait, my
yeah.
video or his video?
No, 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 no. His video.
Oh, okay, I thought like you said somebody clipped it and it went viral. I was like, oh
No,
wow.
that'd be
No.
sick. That'd be sick. That's the
Yeah,
goal. That's the goal.
yeah,
But like
yeah.
that's exactly actually what I wanted to get at because um like how infuriating is it to you and frustrating is it to you to see someone like Hassan go out there and just completely misinform people who probably would be open-minded and respond well to like what actual Marxism is. Yet he's telling them that like this reformist Democratic Party like pseudo progressivism is the answer.
Yeah, for me, the kind of place I'm coming at is that I'm more of a meat and potatoes guy. Ideology is not that important to me. So I kind of have to see it at that level. And what it really is that Hassan is telling his viewers that like, oh, it's almost like he's making it into a religion. Like, oh, Marxism is just this kind of niche idea that we use to supplement, and it's just like that, we should have workers co-ops, and but that's only if we're like feeling especially edgy and dangerous and adventurous or whatever. Like he's treating it like it's this kind of supplement to this cookie cutter Democrat position. And what I really want people to understand is that Marxism is not some kind of like moral theory about some like that there should just be worker co-ops. Marxism has ambitions that are at the executive level of power. It's at a level of scale of the modern economy as a whole. It's not just like some side project you do at opening a pizza shop that's a co-op. And the reason Hassan would prefer it to just be this kind of like pizza shop thing is because he wants people to not keep their eye on the ball as far as where real politics is happening, which is at the executive level of state power. I mean, at that level, Hassan told his viewers to go vote for Biden. He still won't account for, his mistake as far as the overall strategy, political strategy
Yeah.
of the country is concerned. He won't admit that people like Jimmy Dore were right and he and his uncle were wrong. So he's distracting them with this like nonsense about Marxism, that it's like, oh yeah, Marxism is this idea that, we should all run every, it's really funny. This was the highlight of the stream to me, was that when he was like, yeah, and like the way you think about this, like workers' ownership of the means of production is like, it's like me, I'm a streamer. I own my computer and I can, stream whenever. It's just like being a streamer. Like,
Yeah, that part was bad.
I don't know. I mean, how could a self-proclaimed socialist go about pretending like? Could you imagine Hassan just like going up to like a coal miner or something and just being like, "Yeah, man, it's just like streaming." You're gonna be just like me. You're just gonna, it's ridiculous. It's absurd.
It would be like the Steven Crowder. I think it was a Crowder moment when he get like slapped in the face by some union worker. He got like punched out or something.
Yeah, yeah. You know what I think it is, and this is what I said last night too. It's like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake. Oh, well, yeah, just everyone will be a streamer like me. It'll be just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other part in his video, he was trying to relate to the average worker, and he said, he's like, bro, I worked at a startup, and he's like, I didn't have control over my intellectual property, and this basically means that I didn't have full control over the things I produced with my labor, or whatever. And he was posturing all of this as if he was working at like some small startup or something, when literally he was working at the Young Turks.
Yeah,
and only got that job because of his uncle. And like the Young Turks, it was not a startup when when Hassan started working there. It was like, how many years? Like over 10 years it had been going.
Well, to be fair, I mean, there's nothing that really conjures to mind the image of the working man than a young guy working for their uncle's media company. That is the quintessential, American worker.
Yeah. No, shit was wild. I couldn't even believe it. And it's like, bro, like no wonder, like the left right now is so many people feel politically homeless, is because like this dude is supposed to be the answer. He's like posturing himself as like the answer to all of our problems and stuff.
Sorry, go ahead.
One of the other crazier parts of the stream I found was when someone asked him like, well, communism has never worked, Marxism has never worked in history, and he conceded that. He was like, no, it hasn't ever worked. And I'm like, have you ever like picked up a history book? Like, you have any recollection of, or even like, have you even looked at what China's doing right now? They've eradicated extreme poverty in their country. You look at what Cuba's doing, despite the economic warfare that they've been under for decades. It's like, how can you actually say that as a leftist? And the answer, I think, is he's just not really a leftist. If you're saying some shit like that, then you're not really a leftist.
Well, I mean, one of their usual reproaches is like, well, if we own that history, then it's going to scare people away from the word. But it's like, dude, they already think Biden is like Stalin. Okay, so if you're going around calling yourself a socialist, like you're gonna have to embrace that history. And if you don't want to do that, don't call yourself that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. If it wasn't for the Soviet Union and China and all of this Cold War and all that, I mean, would the word communism have any power or be interesting whatsoever? No, I mean, those are the things that gave the word clout and relevance in the first place.
Yeah, and the other thing is like the successes of these countries are not scary. Like if Hassan did the due diligence of actually explaining to his audience the successes that these countries have had, be it in like like economic literacy or education or literacy or healthcare or distribution of wealth, like these are objectively good things. And by continuing to like concede this bullshit point that Marxism has failed or communism has failed in every place it's been tried, it's perpetuating this myth that it can't work if it were to be applied here in our own American way that was based on American progressivism. So honestly, I think it's detrimental to the movement as a whole. It's detrimental in the same way that like AOC and Bernie sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party is detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is that we're dealing with a new, very dangerous ideology that's emerged recently, right? Maybe we can just vaguely call it democratic socialism, and it's almost kind of a religion. It's this idea that, well, we have this ideal of a perfect society. It's never existed anywhere on Earth, but we're always going to go back to that as that our ultimate end goal that's going to justify like all of our positions now. So, we'll support Biden. We'll even support Americans' foreign interventions, but all in the name of this supposed end goal that has never been realized anywhere and has absolutely no reality. And it's not so much about the end goal as much as it is their new religion that allows them to justify continually supporting the Democrats. I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. If they can just pretend that they're doing it all in the name of this like imagined, end goal, then they can justify anything that the Democrats do, right? I mean, like if you confront them, for example, with the fact that, oh, but what about the inconsistencies? What about, the track record of the Democrats? What about the corruption? What about Biden, what Biden's doing? They could just be like, well, yeah, but the world is shitty anyway, and this is just a closer step to this, this end goal we have in mind. So it's a really nefarious, and like here on Twitch, for example, on political Twitch, you see people saying things like, oh, it would be a good thing if America overthrew the governments of China and North Korea because that would make them more democratic. And being a democracy is a necessary step to realizing our special vision of democratic socialism. So actually, American imperialism is spreading socialism, I mean, that's kind of what this ideology is leading to. And the super dangerous thing about that, sorry, I don't mean to ramble, is that when you look at fascism historically, right, real fascism, it came out of the movement of social democracy. That's where it emerged. And it was really following this path of like social democracy becoming a form of social chauvinism, like our nation is the best way to realize our goals. And then that was pretty much a stepping stone to the whole phenomena of fascism. So I see something like that on its way to being realized in this new democratic socialism thing.
Yeah, and you know what's scary about it also is the fact that like, I mean, there are parallels that could be made to like those critiques that Lenin brought up in State and Revolution of like social chauvinists, like to what's happening right now. Like you see this pseudo progressive movement that's rising to power, and in its own way is engaging in this authoritarian power grab of this country. Like the way in which the progressives, from like Elizabeth Warren to AOC to all the other Justice Democrats, are bolstering the security state. They're exploiting what happened on January 6th to give billions more to like Capitol Police and Capitol Security, and wage this new war on like domestic terror as they define it. It's really scary, and I don't see it going down like anything but a bad path. And someone who's been really documenting it well, that I hope to have a conversation with soon about it, is and I have disagreements with him on other issues, but like Glenn Greenwald has been laying this out so beautifully, and it's like it's really terrifying. It's really terrifying because like I remember I remember during the primary season, like my art teacher from high school, he was like a big Elizabeth Warren supporter for some reason. I don't know why, but he was, and he reposted something about Elizabeth Warren's plan to crack down on like hate speech and fake news on Facebook and social media apps. And I'm like, that is not a good thing. That is not something that a leftist like you claim to be should be standing for. But people are getting duped into it by the fact that these so-called progressives are weaponizing like progressive language to achieve these really authoritarian goals. It's frightening.
Um, yeah. Sorry, my stream just got raided.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, I just got bots raiding my chat. This happens like every time
Oh,
I talk
bots.
about like a spicy issue that's bothering a certain, political ideology. This actually happens, so it's actually kind of
Really?
scary. Yeah, but anyway, here's the thing: we leftists, real leftists, I should say, we have to be very careful, and we have to learn the lessons of history. It is
Hmm.
so easy for us to be duped. We really just don't pay attention, and we kind of just human beings, when they see others signaling in ways that are familiar to them, they just kind of overlook it, right? But we have to really understand there's really a difference between what's on the surface and what's really going on. And the troubling thing that we have to come to terms with is the fact that this, pseudo progressive democratic socialist or whatever we call it ideology has proven to be perfectly compatible with the deep state, American imperialism, the CIA, all of the military industrial complex, and corporate
Yep.
America. We have to really and seriously reflect on what is actually emerging, because I genuinely, I don't mean to be an alarmist, but I genuinely see parallels to historical fascism. This is pretty much how fascism came to be. Leftists really weren't paying attention. Some of these chauvinists sounded leftist and they sounded like they were progressive. And then all of a sudden, this new monster just emerged that they had no way of making sense of. So it's very important for us to be vigilant that this is really something evil and dangerous that's coming into being, and it's cloaking itself in the disguise of like, oh, it's being super progressive socially and all this kind of stuff. But what's really going on is, I think that this is the new religion and ideology of American imperialism. We see that American imperialism is in decline all across the globe. So one of the new forms of soft power is exporting this kind of religion of pseudo progressivism. And the American left as we know it is pretty much just going along with it. They're not even questioning it.
Yeah, I agree. Given that we both see that to be the case, I'm curious how you would approach a conversation when someone like Hassan is focusing so much on the fact that like what he wants is democratic socialism, and that this is what Marxism is. Like he continues to harp on democratic socialism, and as you pointed out in your reaction to his video yesterday, like Marx and Engels weren't talking about democratic socialism. They were talking about like proletarian dictatorship. That's what they were talking about. So I'm curious how you would respond to someone like Hassan, or someone who's again like cloaking this authoritarian power grab that we're seeing from these mainstream progressive figures like the Squad, the Justice Democrats, the people that Hassan supports, when in fact they're using these progressive terms like democratic socialism to try and achieve their goals.
Yeah, it's almost the sad thing is that it's not even so much a debate between like revolutionary Marxism versus reformism, because even on the reform front, like these people are totally impotent. They can't even get health care, So
They wouldn't even force a vote on Medicare for all. DSA
yeah,
wouldn't even do that.
yeah, that's what I mean. So what I really, like I said, I think Marxists are supposed to be materialists, right? And the basic idea with that is that we're supposed to focus on the meat and potatoes behind things. Ideology is oftentimes a distraction. And when we look at the meat and potatoes, all of this kind of pretentious ideological stuff Hassan is talking about is just an excuse for the objective and material reality of his political impotence. He's still just trailing along the mainstream media and the Democrats and the deep state, and you know, all everything he's saying is just an excuse for that. I mean, he might pretend like he wants this democrat socialist society or whatever, but the real thing going on is that he's just making excuses for why he can't break from the Democratic Party and
Mhm.
break from the kind of American ruling class. But to be clear, what Hassan and these other democratic socialists are saying has absolutely nothing to do with Marxism or Marx and Engels. Um, Marx and Engels, did not virtue signal about democracy at all. Um, they didn't, try to pander to liberals and whatever. They often thought liberals were at a certain point harming the movement, and getting in the way of building a real, more kind of populistic working class movement that also relates to the peasantry. So I think one of the reasons they use Marx and Engels' ideas is because it gives them legitimacy. Marx is very old. He's got a big beard, so he looks like he was smart. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like they're trying to turn Marx into like the democratic socialist Dumbledore. If that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It's almost like an aesthetic
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. No, I agree with that because like nothing that they claim to be supporting in the current state of like at least American politics resembles anything that Marx would have supported. Marx would have like all prominent Marxists would have laughed at the Squad and the Justice Democrats at what they honestly at what they were even trying to do, but also at what they've become. Like it's just it's so ridiculous and like there isn't like any single ounce of effort from any of the Justice Democrats to speak out against like U.S. imperialism or the security state. It's like those are untouchable issues. Those are the issues that will expose them if they get caught talking about them. And we've seen it like a few times. AOC's talked about Venezuela a few times, didn't go well. But like there's some issues that like they just don't talk about, and you see that a lot from Hassan and the other and bread tubers who will just refrain from talking about certain issues or certain stories because they know that if they do talk about those issues and those stories, they're going to look like fools in front of their audiences. So they tiptoe around and find ways to continue to try and defend the Democratic Party and Joe Biden. I mean, like it just still drives me insane that like all of these people who claim to be Marxist, socialists, Vosh, Hassan, they all encourage their audiences to vote for Joe Biden. Like you've lost all my respect at this point if you're encouraging your fans to vote for fucking Joe Biden. It's
Yeah.
insane.
I mean, this is what I said last night. I said, it's one thing to not do anything, right? Maybe you could be critiqued for just, not doing anything. But you didn't have to like tell people to go vote for Biden. At the very least, you didn't have to completely ruin your credibility and just tell people
Yeah.
that this was a choice they had to make.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's really pathetic. I mean, it's like the Democratic Party made it very clear that they don't care about the will of the voters. They don't care about democracy or the will of the constituents. And the fact that the people who are supposed to be the vanguards of a populistic or socialistic movement in America that's pretending to want to overthrow the establishment, they should be the first ones to say, okay, well, if you don't care, why are they doing it for free? I don't get it. Are they getting paid? What do they gain from this? Here's what I think. I have a theory. I think what they gain from it is being able to play Among Us with AOC. What they gain from it is, being able to have connections in the corporate and political establishments. And that's pretty much who
Yeah.
they're siding with. They just want those opportunities. They want those connections. They want to be insiders. They want to be part of what George Carlin called the big club. And that's why I
Mhm.
think they're doing it. They're trying to climb ladders and become established. Alternative media has really been a rival to the mainstream media. Online media has. And I think what these people are trying to do is they want to get a foot in the door to becoming legitimized and established. And that explains a lot of the reasons why they assume the positions they do.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like that's exactly what's happening. And you look at, the like the media agencies, the representatives that all these people have, and it's like they all run in the same circles. Like the Me Too propagandists that are covering up, for Joe Biden in the face of like Tara Reid's story and all the other women who've come out against him. Like those same people are the same people who are representing like Cenk Uygur and other voices at the Young Turks. Like it's the same little incestual pool of like political and media elites. They all run in the same circles together. And I thought it was really interesting in your stream when you were talking about that yesterday, specifically with I don't really know Destiny's history with Twitch, but you were saying something like uh, Destiny. For those of you who don't know, Destiny is a like a fat neoliberal streamer, like the biggest neoliberal streamer in the world. I don't mean like fat, like physically fat. I mean like he's just like the biggest neoliberal on the planet and a rank imperialist. And like Twitch has had a rockier relationship with Destiny, from what I understand you were saying, than with Hassan. Yet Hassan postures himself as someone who's like anti-corporate, anti-establishment, anti-Amazon, who owns Twitch. Yet the Amazon-owned Twitch has been more hostile to Destiny, insofar as like carrying out their community guideline restrictions and all that stuff than they have been with Hassan.
That's the crazy thing. I mean, Destiny is more critical of, policies. He tends to be more critical of narratives, not in terms of the mainstream media, but just in the Twitch culture. And it's a super weird thing. It's like, and the reason is obvious, because Destiny openly admitting his position and just being honest about it, it almost subverts the thing he's trying to defend. The best way to defend the status quo isn't by directly identifying with it, but by pretending you're otherwise. If you directly identify with it, it's almost like it produces this effect of absurdity, which actually undermines it. And I think
Yeah.
that's what Destiny's done. In the case of Hassan's done a much better job of defending the status quo, because he doesn't actually take responsibility for it. He says, "Oh well," because I mean, the layman obviously sees problems with the system, right?
Mhm.
And if you have to take you have to like make sense of those and take account of them, right? So Hassan does that while at the same time reproducing that same system. And that's a much more efficient way than just like denying the problems altogether, which is kind of what Destiny does.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with that. What you've had a few conversations with Destiny. How's that been? Is he more of like you feel like he's more of just generally like an honest dude than someone like Vosh?
Yeah, well, way more than Voss from my limit. I mean, I've talked to him quite a bit. I don't really know him that well, so it's hard
Mhm.
to judge his character, but he's a pretty friendly, he seems honest to me. He doesn't really take things personally when it comes to politics. Doesn't seem petty, and I really do believe that when he says things, he believes it. He doesn't lie,
Yeah,
He
yeah,
believes what he says. The issue with Vosh is that he lies very openly, and it's really scary how like he doesn't there's it's like, usually when people lie, you just kind of like you see this have an effect on them in some way. And Voss just does it with like empty, cold eyes. He just lies with no problem
yeah,
whatsoever.
yeah. He does. He does. It is frightening. Again, tying it back, like the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that listen to them, and they just like they flat out lie to their audience every day. It's crazy. I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but a few minutes ago you said something to the effect of like you're more concerned with the meat and potatoes of any given situation, and you try. I mean, like I think we can both agree that like learning history, learning theory are good things, but like you try not to let that get in the way of actually fighting for the things that are right in front of us.
Yeah.
Do you see that like Okay, so Jimmy Dore, I don't think that he even considers himself a Marxist.
Based.
I've never
Meat
heard
and
him talk
potatoes.
about Marxism, but I know some people in my chat have said in the past, like, oh, he doesn't really consider himself a Marxist. Would that be like a good example of like kind of what you're talking about? Like,
Yeah, I think it's a perfect example. I mean, just to be completely honest with you, as a Marxist Leninist, I've been pretty annoyed at the supposed rise of Marxism and even Marxism Leninism in America. I see it as a distraction from the concrete and authentic uh, populist movement that's kind of represented in part by people like Jimmy Dore. I think people are, a lot of the time people are turning to Marxism as a way of avoiding reality. Where when actually the point of Marxism is that it's supposed to help us clarify the reality, right? Like the point of Marxism isn't to like create our own, vision and just impose that on reality. It's to discern the real and concrete material contradictions in reality. And if you do that, you are led to the fact that um, the site of a working class populistic movement is going to be from people like Jimmy Dore. And I think Marxism has to prove its worth as far as being useful to these kinds of movements and not the other way around. It's not Jimmy Dore's job to prove he's a Marxist. It's the job of Marxists to be able to make sense of Jimmy Dore's popularity and the widespread need and desire on part of the American people for an alternative. So we Marxists, we have to serve the people. We can't tell the people to serve us and our, you know,
yeah,
ideological agendas.
no,
So
that's a good point.
yeah, so I've been very wary and kind of suspicious of a lot of this kind of newfound interest in Marxism. And I think it can be led in a good direction, but at the same time, it is oftentimes a distraction.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
especially see that when people say things like, "Oh, Jimmy Dore is just a social democrat," and it's like, okay, but what decisive significance, if that's true, what decisive significance does that have for concrete reality? Because the concrete reality is that he's telling people to get away from the Democrats and look for alternatives, and that is a real step one. you
yeah,
know?
and beyond that, like the dude who considers himself a socialist, a Marxist, Vosh, he's telling people that based on quotes from Lenin, that Lenin would have wanted all of you to vote for Joe Biden. So it's like it doesn't get any more backwards than that, right? Like using Lenin's words to try and manipulate people into voting for one of the most ranked corporatist, careerist politicians, racists, like imperialists on the planet. It just makes no sense. So,
Well,
uh,
sorry, go ahead.
no, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say there's two really you know just glaring reasons why that's like such a silly thing for Vosh to say. The first one is that Lenin Lenin never spoke of political tactics in individual terms, like, oh, you random strangers should vote this way. I mean, voting was a matter internal to the party. The party would decide, if they should engage in this kind of political action. So that alone makes what Vosh says flatly wrong. But more interestingly is that if you look at the history of what separated Lenin and the Bolsheviks from people like the Mensheviks,
Based.
it was actually the fact that what Lenin was actually saying was that, yes, the proletarian revolution must be united with the democratic revolution to overthrow the Tsar, basically, right? The kind of more progressive democratic one. But Lenin had a very unique insight here.
Based.
So the Mensheviks said that the implications of that is that the proletarian movement has to follow the liberal big bourgeoisie that were in the cities, the Joe Bidens of their time, right? The Mensheviks basically were saying that we can put this revolution on hold and we can just um, follow the progressive big bourgeoisie. Lenin had a genius response to this, and which is why he's such a historical genius. He said, first, This big bourgeoisie you're talking about is in bed with the czar. They're not going to be able to overthrow the czar. They're in bed with the czar, right? Just like Joe Biden is not going to be able to eliminate, the America's oil industry and all that kind of, and the insurance industries. It's the same thing we're dealing with in a way, and the military-industrial complex. Second, Lenin said the actual real, authentic, progressive, and democratic forces are not going to be found in the cities. It's not going to be the big bourgeoisie. It's going to be this more small bourgeoisie that you're finding among the peasants. Kind of like, I guess they would be like comparable to like small business owners today in America now. You're going to find the democratic forces in the peasants, and the workers need to unite with the peasants, and that's how they're going to be able to overthrow the czar. That's how they're going to be able to take power by just trailing the liberal big bourgeoisie. You're just wasting your time, basically, right? So it's super ironic for Walsh to say that Lenin would have advocated for voting for Biden when, I mean, like, the whole thing that distinguished Lenin from everyone else during his time was taking the opposite stance, that while you can't, jump in the proletarian revolution alone, the real, um, the real, allies the proletariat's going to find is going to be among the peasantry. And my argument is that in America, what's comparable to that is the flyover states, the rural America,
Yes,
kind of people who are voting for Trump. Not all of them, but a lot of them. It's going to
a
be
lot of them.
people, yeah, people who are losing their jobs, like in the coal miners in West Virginia. And, those people are not, super socially progressive or whatever. But that's where you're going to find the real forces of democracy, the real forces of change. You're not going to find it by trailing the Silicon Valley pseudo progressives, who are in fact incapable of actually initiating this kind of fourth industrial revolution. They're too wedded with Wall Street. They're too wedded with the big fossil fuel companies and all. So yeah, sorry for going on a tangent
No,
about
no,
that.
no. I thought that was extremely insightful, and it paints a very accurate picture at like where we're currently at in this country. And yeah, I mean, again, you really nailed it with kind of like, as when you talked about like flyover states, you talked about the Rust Belt. Like, these are the states that Democrats should be winning. Like, hypothetically, if they were actual leftists, like, in control of Democratic Party, but like, it's never going to happen, and it's not even the aims of the Democratic Party anymore. Like, the Democratic Party is focused on targeting suburban communities, suburban voters now. Like, that's their target audience. That target audience does not give a fuck about security state, the security state beefing up, or like privacy intrusions, or U.S. imperialism. Like, they don't care about those things because they've to a certain extent, relatively, they've made it, and they're more concerned with like the social issues, or like whatever's being covered on like CNN or MSNBC. Like, that's their concern because they have the privilege to only care about those things. Whereas people in the flyover states, people have like lost their jobs, lost like any and all manufacturing within like a 100-mile radius of where they live. Like, those are the people who are suffering. Those are the people that we should be uniting to try and rebuild this country. And that's why I think you'd probably agree with me that like so many people in those states, who had jobs that have been outsourced via like TPP, permanent normal trade relations, NAFTA, like all of these trade deals that are crafted by multinational corporations, resonated more with Trump's rhetoric than they did with Hillary Clinton, who's the wife of the guy who orchestrated all those deals and the outsourcing of all those jobs.
Yeah, well, you have a really viciously kind of class chauvinistic attitude that democratic socialists have, where they are the same way. I mean, they really do see these, more wealthy suburban Americans as like, oh, they're more progressive, and these are the people who are going to be won over to socialism, and all these deplorables. Oh, it's almost like it's not almost. They're really a kind of aristocratic. So it's like the aristocracy, like hundreds of years ago. They have that level of arrogance and smug sense of social superiority, and they become so detached from ordinary Americans that it's almost like they think they're like a some kind of separate species altogether. Like they're just transcended, the American people, and they're just above it all. And the truth is that not only are these people not opposing these new security laws, they're jumping with joy when they look at that. They're saying, okay, finally we're going to be able to rein in America's majority, because they've given up on actually being able to persuade and win them over. And they really think that their failure is because of some kind of deficiency on part of working Americans and not themselves. And you see these people saying really nasty stuff. I've seen, I've seen democratic socialist leftists joke about the opiate crisis. I've seen them, mock rural people and talk about how they're backward and reactionary. Um, like I said, it's a really nasty kind of ideology that's starting to emerge.
Yeah, it's like a mindset that anyone who's poor is just irredeemable and they can't be a part of this movement, because maybe they didn't go to an Ivy League, and maybe they aren't aware of like what like gender pronouns are or something like that. It's just insane, and everyone has room for growth, but like at the end of the day, the one thing that the left shouldn't be doing is discounting the pain and suffering that is being felt by so many millions of Americans all across this country who are actually suffering at the hands of capitalism. I'm curious your thoughts. I know we briefly kind of talked about this when I went on your stream, but I'm curious your thoughts as far as like electoral politics
Based.
go. Um, Obviously you don't support the Democratic Party, but you do you have like any candidates or politicians or anyone that you currently look to as like a fighter for change, as it currently stands? Like I think Shama Swan is doing a really good job. I know that there's an individual who I actually did a stream with who's running for Long Beach City Council in California under CPUSA. I'm curious your thoughts on like the current state of like third parties and like outsider politicians.
I'm not too kept up on what's going on in the electoral races right now. I don't, I'm just not informed enough. But I will tell you, back in the day in 2016, not 2016, this was like 2018 or something. I remember Richard Ojeda, and I thought this would be a force of change and this would really initiate a new thing. And unfortunately, that it seemed like that fell through. I really saw something promising in him back then. But to be honest with you, it's really difficult to know, what where to go to from here. But
Yeah.
I'm not really dogmatic. I'm just looking for who can really build a third party alternative and really inherit the force of 2016's populism. And I think that's the number one important thing right now is just some kind of force that can transcend America's false division between like Trump and these so-called progressives, who whether it's the People's Party that's going to do that, or whether it's Communist Party, which to me would be like a dream. But if it's not the Communist Party, I mean, that's fine. Whoever is worthy of succeeding that mantle, I'll get behind them. That's really what I'm looking at now. But I do think that while it's important to pay attention to local
Based.
realities at this level to build a backbone of the movement, we need to keep our eye on the prize. I mean, our ambitions must be like nationwide and executive.
Mm.
It has to be a movement that will sweep the whole country.
Yeah.
And a
That
lot of times people get this idea like, oh, if you just do like praxis and mutual aid, that's at least we'll feel good and we'll feel cozy. And it's like that's a complete distraction. Our ambitions have to be like big leagues.
yeah, if we only preoccupy ourselves with like, in theory, if like everyone was making sure that their community was like, in check, that would be a good thing. But that's not how it works. It's like, if we still have this, it's really a one party system in this country that is controlling everything, and that's the corporate state. Then we're bound for failure. We're bound for more misery and more suffering. So I agree 100% with that. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
it's like there's been waves. The first one I think to memory, there's probably been before, it was Occupy Wall Street. That was really like a moment where it seemed like the establishment was losing control. But they got that under control. I mean, one of the ways they did that also was flaming up the culture war. I mean, there's so many Occupy people who became like reactionaries and whatever just because of the culture. Like Tim Pool's one of them.
It was
Actually,
kind of like before that. That was definitely before I was in politics. So
yeah.
I'm not too privy to that, but that's interesting that you're saying that, because that like
Yeah.
reminds me so much of what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean, so Occupy was one of those moments, and then it kind of got extinguished, and then 2016 was the next one. There a lot happened in between those, but I'm just trying to sum it up. 2016, you had this kind of shockwave of populism where it seemed like they were scared, the establishment and whatever, they were scared. But they got it under control eventually, and now we're here, and Joe Biden's the president, but COVID happened 20 2020, and it's really uncertain what the kind of future we're going into now, because if you look at Europe, the mainstream media is not covering this. Just recently, you had a demonstration of 200,000 people in. I mean,
Really,
that is unreal. All over Europe and France and Germany and elsewhere, there is just a shockwave of unrest, and the media isn't covering it. And I think they're not covering it because they don't want it to spread here. But I do think it is going to spread here. I think we're going to see something like that happen here. It's only a matter of time. Um,
so I haven't. I actually haven't seen it yet either. So I need to do some research. But are you saying is it? Would you say it's similar to like what you saw happen with like yellow vest movement?
it
Is
seems
it?
so. Yeah, it seems like it.
Mm,
I mean, we're looking at the Delta variant, and I don't really see a
Delta
solution in
plus.
sight. Yeah, it seems like we're really fucked.
And I guess
Um,
there's another one too now that's like it's they said there's a fourth one that's going to be, it started in California, I guess. That's where they first found it, and it's
oh
going to be
geez, yeah.
more transmittable than any of the other ones, and it's not none of the vaccines apparently protect it yet.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, if it happens look, this is how my mentality. If I see on the news that there's like a new thing in India, it's like okay, it's coming here.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was the Delta variant. I remember seeing the news about Delta, and it was like, why aren't people acting like this is like gonna be here very soon? Because it is gonna
yeah.
spread here. If you find it in one place in the world, it's coming here.
Very
Um,
soon. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. And then what does that mean? It means there's going to be turmoil, economic turmoil, right? How is life going to go back to normal, and how are people going to pay rent? How are people going to get by? So what's this? I wouldn't be so worried were it not like you'd think after all this
Based.
time we have a socialist vanguard that's going to lead us through these troubling times, and we don't
I think a
have
lot of
that. We should have the infrastructure and the backbone and these all of these influencers and BreadTube and Hassan to be the leaders of some kind of alternative. But they just chose the easy path and decided to sell out. Or I don't know if they sold out. Maybe they were like that from the start. But we it's like we have no infrastructure to deal with this issue. But that's what I always like to say is, people ask me like, oh, Haas, how do we initiate the revolution? And I tell them we're not going to initiate the revolution. It's going to happen. I mean, there's 200,000 people in Berlin. Like, yeah, that's going to come here. And if you're not the one leading that, that sucks for you. And it's also dangerous because some right-wing demagogue might come and lead it, you know? I mean, it's going to happen either way. People are fed up. So it's your job to be the leader of that, you know? It's not about creating something from scratch. It's about relating to the American people. And it's a very gloomy, it looks really gloomy as of now. But I think people like us, real leftists, I think we should. I mean, you know, to be honest, that's one of the reasons I started streaming. I started streaming because I see these media platforms as vehicles to initiate. I mean, I don't see myself as the leader of a movement or a party, but just this information war changes how people do things in real life. If that kind of makes
100%. I mean, like, I know, like, I oftentimes do bring things back to this, but like, just imagine if just imagine if like all of BreadTube and Hassan were aligned on forcing the vote on Medicare for all. Like,
oh
to be honest,
God, we'd have it. I mean that. Oh, could you imagine? It would be World War IV. Like
I mean,
if
you're
if they
already,
were if they all got in line, mobilized all of their viewers, and they were
yes,
all on the same page. Holy
yes.
shit, we would be living in communism right now. You know?
I mean, it was crazy during that. We had like groups of like mainly honestly Jimmy Dore supporters and members of like other audiences who were getting together during the week of Christmas, calling into representatives' offices. The I think it was like 13 Justice Democrats we were targeting, and basically encouraging them to force the vote. And even with like 20, 30, 40, 50 people calling in a given day, you know, just going down the line through the list of all the Justice Democrats, like they would literally reiterate to us, like the people on the other end of the line, they're like, wow, you guys have called quite a few times today, like 50. Wow, we got a few quite a few people encouraging us to force the vote on Medicare for all, withhold our support for Pelosi. Now imagine if that number was like 5,000
Oh
or 10,000.
man.
Imagine.
It is, and you know that came from I mean, in part came from people like Jimmy Dore, you know,
It
and
did.
you just mentioned the Justice Democrats, and who started that? It was influencers, Kyle Kulinski and the Young Turks media, you know. So we have to be really cognizant that this media is a very powerful force, initiate things in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, one of the things I always tell my viewers is that if I start getting like, first of all, I gotta support myself, right? I gotta do this full time. I gotta pay my bills and for my food, whatever. That's gonna come first. But if I get to Hassan level or these Houston's level with like all of these viewers, I tell my viewers we're gonna do something with it. You know, I'm not just gonna sit here complain about the world. If we have a way to get the ball rolling on something, we're gonna do that. You know, and
Yeah.
uh yeah, so for me it's you know, I've been a pretty successful streamer so far, but I don't see myself as like, oh, I just gonna want to be a streamer, that's gonna be my career. I have long-term ambitions that
I think it's badass. I think that's what we need more of. You know,
yeah.
like what good is someone who's I mean, I can't even say what good is someone who's like fighting from just behind a screen, but like all of these bread tubers and Hassan alike, and some of the, you know, streamers on YouTube, they're literally just putting out misinformation now, but and
Yeah.
lying to their audiences. But like, what good in a hypothetical situation is just someone who's sitting behind a screen and you know, amassing all this wealth if they're not going to leverage their privilege to get out on the streets and continue the fight or build something, you know, build
Well,
something.
sometimes I think maybe being too generous. Maybe it's because they lack media theory. Maybe it's just because they've gotten used to this idea that they're just reacting to the world and not affecting it at the same time. Like that's pretty much why they've come to this conclusion where they just justify anything the Democrats do because they fail to see, I mean, like how much they can actually make a difference with their
Yeah,
platforms. They just see themselves as like reacting to the world rather than participating in it.
that could definitely be. I feel like there's a lot of that goes on, especially when I think about like, well, one of the biggest shows right now is I don't know if you watch it at all, but it's Breaking Points, and like they are like a news show, right? Like they kind of operate like they tried to like they tried to have like the setup of like a mainstream news show. It's Crystal Ball and Sagar and Jetty, but like we all know that Crystal has like actual, progressive beliefs. And Kyle's right there. Kyle Kalinski's right there. Like I think he was co-hosting the show today and this week, and it's like, why are you guys not like actually trying to fight for something new? Why are you just like reacting to the news and doing this like when you could be debunking the news or debunking the bullshit that's happening and pushing for something new? But like the craziest thing is like when Kyle's ever faced with like an alternative option to what has failed us and what he admits has failed us, the Justice Democrats, it's like he says, "Oh, I don't think a third party could work. I don't think a third party could work." And it's like, well, it's not going to work if you don't try.
Well, and it's
So
it's especially not going to work if you're spreading demoralization about it platform.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. So I've just never understood that. But that it is an interesting thing to think about, and it's something I've thought a lot about. And it's why I was so hyped on Forced to Vote, and I was so hyped even on though there weren't a lot of action calls behind it. There were some. The March for Medicare for All I thought was great as well, and it felt vibrant being out in the streets. I would hope moving forward we have more action oriented, demonstrations and events.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, media is a very powerful tool to unite people. Um, I've considered the idea of like, if I got big, thinking like far into the future, what if I organized like some kind of like meetup, where we just some kind of political meetup where discuss new ideas and invite, I'm thinking in those terms where of like, how to really get the ball going and
I think there's a Caleb Maupin is. Have you ever had Caleb on your show?
yeah, yeah, I've talked to him before, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
like a big fan. Before I heard about you, I always considered Caleb the only other, because I don't really know a lot of people. I just consider like, oh yeah, Caleb's like our only ally, pretty much.
yeah. There aren't a whole lot of allies. I mean, there honestly, I feel like there's way more on YouTube actually that do like
Very
YouTube streaming.
true.
There's a lot more now. I don't know what happened, but there's been this new wave of like, I mean, I feel like I'm a part of that wave. Like I'm very new. But there's this new wave of like real lefty streamers that have risen up, and it's cool to see. But I think Caleb is like through his the organization that he has. It's like a political organization. The name is slipping my mind at
It's
the moment.
Center for Political Innovation, the CPI.
Yeah, I think they're doing a yes, Center for Political Innovation. I have the book right here. They're doing like a socialist convention in Santa Barbara sometime soon.
Oh, really? I
Which
didn't know about that. Wow.
yeah, yeah. I think I'm gonna go to that. It should be
Really?
pretty
Where is that going to be at?
cool. Santa Barbara in California.
California?
Yeah.
When is that?
I have it right here. Let me see. It sounds really sick. I love Santa Barbara too. Have you ever been to Santa Barbara?
No, I haven't been to California many times in general.
Wait, you haven't been to California?
No, I've been there a few times, but just like not a lot.
I'm not there. Let's see here. Oh, it's coming up. I think it's August 28th, 29th.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
wow.
coming up.
I
It's
don't know. I don't know. I can't commit to it, but yeah, I'll consider going to that.
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right up the alley of what you're talking about. Sounds pretty cool. It's
Yeah,
but it sounds pretty cool.
it does. Honestly, it does. Is Caleb gonna be there?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe
Wow.
so.
Yeah, yeah. I might. I'm gonna write that down. I might do it.
Yeah, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to get people together for that for sure.
Yeah.
We should honestly, I was thinking about it before I went live with you. We should do at some point, I think a stream with like you, me, Caleb. I don't know if Jimmy's ever done anything with Caleb, but that would be a
Oh,
really
if we, I mean,
good.
us three alone would be like crazy. But if we could get Jimmy as the fourth, that would be that would
That'd
be
be
like
bad.
the most legendary stream of all time.
That would be a legendary stream. I know. I was thinking about it right before we went live. I'm like, fuck, that'd be a hype as fuck.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think that'd be good. I think that'd be good. I mean, why not? That's
Yeah.
another thing. Someone just said, Les Bone said Jimmy on Twitch. Yeah, Jimmy's got to get on. I mean, that would be insane if Jimmy
I
fucking
you
helped
know, I want
Twitch.
him to, but I also want him to be careful and not get banned off Twitch because if he gets banned, I will never be able to cover him again. You know,
Really? Is that how it works?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah,
What?
listen, I got to tell you this. Twitch's terms of service are not intuitive. I mean, there are rules. Usually you'd think YouTube is a common sense rules, right? Twitch is
Uh-huh.
a different ball game. The rules are not based on common sense, and you actually do have to read them because yeah, they will definitely, they're
Yeah.
very strict about it too. So yeah, if someone's banned, you can't show them or quote unquote promote them on stream.
Wow.
Um yeah, you can't show. I have to clear this up. I'm gonna try to get partnered soon, and I'll have a manager and I'll ask them. But they have a thing about hate symbols, and I don't know if that applies for like the news and documentaries and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I got to get that cleared up. It's kind of ambiguous.
Yeah.
You
That
also
seems.
cannot show violence like whatsoever. Even if it's in a documentary, you can't show that.
I remember that because
Yeah.
during my reaction to Vosh's stream, I had something up, and you were like, "You can't have that up," and
Yeah.
I didn't have any idea. I also did reach out to Twitch last night. They got back to me very quickly, but
Oh wow.
they they did say that they no longer do any sort of like special agreements for people who have large YouTube audiences
Huh.
as to like mitigating the Twitch exclusive rule. Because for those of you who don't know, if I wanted to become an affiliate on Twitch, which basically means you get people that can like pay subs, it really does help your community grow. Like if you're not an affiliate, I'd imagine.
That's really mysterious you said that because I remember there was a guy who's more of like a bread tube lefty. And I asked him like, "How are you dual streaming?" He said, "Yeah, I called the Twitch and they were totally fine with it." And I think he still does it. He still dual streams.
That may have honestly, it may have been a thing that they used to do, but like
Uh
I at first I got a robot that was like responding to me, and then I just like kept saying like like fuck you, you're not answering my question. And they finally
yeah.
I got like a real person that responded to me, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't do that. So I don't know. We'll
Oh
see.
wow.
I got to think about it because it would help grow the channel on Twitch, and I think it would be important to like discussed with you. Like I think it would be beneficial if we could take over Twitch with a true anti-imperialist left that doesn't lie
Yeah.
about Marxism. But it's tough because like I've built my entire community on YouTube.
That's yeah. So I started on YouTube as well. And then I started to dual stream and then I made the ambitious decision go on start streaming on Twitch. I think I'm an outlier, so I don't know if I could use myself as an example, but I started off getting less, a little bit less than usual, right? But then I slowly grew, and yeah, I'm way past the point of my dual streams combined now. But it's definitely a tough decision to make. One of the reasons I prefer Twitch is the monetization model is just first it's more consistent, so you get a more consistent idea of like the income you're getting. But that could
Mhm.
actually, to be fair, be replaced with Patreon. And then, but another thing that Twitch does is that subs allow you to grow the community as
Yes.
well. Like when people gift subs to strangers, it incentivizes them to be more engaged. So
Yeah.
it's kind of I think one of the biggest reasons I moved to Twitch was because it's so much less formal. It's so much more informal. I could just like make an ass of myself and it's whatever. Like to me, YouTube is more professional.
Yeah, and it's different too, because like you stream for like an insane amount of time. You stream
Yeah.
for like 6, 8 hours, right? Like, what's your
Yeah.
average?
I've been lagging recently. I mean, I gotta up my game definitely, but the goal is to be like 5, 6 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, that's built different. That's built different. I couldn't
Yeah.
do this.
Well, I mean, like if there's another lockdown or quarantine, I mean,
Hey, yeah, really though. Like, if there is, like, I would have nowhere else to go. So,
yeah.
and at that point, you'd probably be doing like 8, 10, 11.
Hey, you wouldn't even believe it. Did you know like there's people like XQC and they stream for like 16 hours a day?
Really?
Yeah, it's unreal. And that's like the one of the biggest guys on Twitch in general. So
Yeah, yeah,
it's kind of like tough competition. It's like, oh shit, I'm not prepared to. I mean, I get exhausted streaming for 4 hours. By the 4 hour mark, I need to like stretch and you know,
yeah. I get exhausted streaming for like 2
yeah,
hours. I can't even
same.
imagine. But yeah, it is a different animal for sure. But I'm gonna try to figure it out, see what I can do. Um, it's a massive audience pool that's being lied to right now, and I think it would be beneficial for everyone. If I mean,
Yeah.
like, again, just going back to it, like, imagine if we had all of the political Twitch viewership that was like calling representatives, encouraging them to force the vote on Medicare for all back in December.
Oh yeah, it'd be
Would have been
crazy. I
insane.
mean, to be fair though, Twitch does have more normies as they call it. A lot of my audience watches me just cuz like they find me entertaining, not necessarily cuz like they care about the politics, but to me it's worth it just if the cracks can slip through a little bit.
Mhm.
Like if for example, like if they're willing to hear me out sometimes about politics
Yeah,
and stuff, that's worth it enough to me.
yeah. I think that, I mean, to a certain extent, I think that's like most political streamers, unless you're like
Yeah.
strictly news. Unless you're strictly news, but I feel like most political streamers on Twitch, it's like a good chunk of like, chatting, gaming, React content, and political content. So it's
Yeah.
like
One of the things that I don't know, are you a gamer?
I have played. I play a little bit, but not a lot.
Oh yeah, what games do you play?
Literally, barely anything. I play. I have on my. I have Destiny,
Oh wow.
and I have this pirate game that's fun. I forget what it's called, but
Sea
you
of
like,
Thieves?
yeah, I've Sea of
Really? You
Thieves.
play that?
Sea of Thieves,
Yeah, that's like one of the only games I play every once in a while.
and I have Among Us, but I hate that game.
Yeah, I've never played Among Us, but that's crazy you have Sea of Thieves. Yeah, that's crazy. You know, that's the one thing that's been just consistently tough for me. Gaming streams. I mean, people people do not watch me to play games. So, yeah, when I start gaming, it's like that's people's cue to like, okay, we got to do something else.
Peace.
Yeah.
Maybe you just don't have the right game yet. Can you play like 2K? I love 2K.
Sports games? No, no, I never.
Really?
Oh, yeah, I never got into them.
Oh, no, no. But can you play them on Twitch?
Oh, yeah, you should be able to play 2K. I don't see why not. Actually, I don't
Yeah.
know. That's so weird you mentioned that. I've never seen someone play that on Twitch.
No, I'm thinking about it too, and I would be like, well, honestly, like, I wouldn't really get a lot of enjoyment off of watching someone else play 2K, but like if it was
Yeah, yeah,
someone I
you
like,
can play it. There's a category, sorry.
there is.
Yeah, there's a category, yeah.
Hey, there
It
you go.
doesn't get a lot of viewers. It's kind of doesn't get a lot
Huh,
of viewers.
maybe we need to tap into that. I feel you know who actually does play 2K streaming is Aiden Ross. I know Aiden
Oh,
Ross
that's right. Yeah, that's how he got big. You're right.
because he played it with like Bronny.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think LeBron James actually played against Aiden Ross at one point.
Really? That is crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
Aiden Ross is like an outlier on the Twitch scene because
that kid's
he
so funny.
yeah, here's the thing. So all these people who are big on Twitch, more or less, they're all like friends with each other, right? And they all came from he calls it the Austin show now. It was like this
Yeah,
show
yeah,
that they
yeah.
used to do.
Familiar.
Yeah, and they all came from that, you know, and they're all friends with each other, and it's like a big club. And one of the reasons I like Aiden is because like he just did his own thing. He didn't even like associate with those people. He just rose to the top by himself, you know?
Yeah, no, it's cool that he did that, and he's got his own thing. He's got like the freestyling he does with rappers. He got 2K, and then also it's like now he literally lives in a. I mean, I don't know how much you follow him, but he lives in a house with Mike Malak and like some of the some like who else is? I think there's some random YouTubers who live in that house. It's like Mike Malak. There's some big gamer that lives in the house, and
Isn't it
then
Rice Gum
Rice Gum. I think Rice Gum lives there.
and Phase Banks? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Facebook
yeah.
lives there, and then there's some chick that lives there too.
Oh
One of
wow.
Hooray or something like that. But like now he's like built this entire like, and he's kind of like the center of it. He's the most poppin' one, and he just went on Impulsive too, Logan Paul show, and blew up on that episode too. I mean, kid's on another level.
Wow. I mean, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Um
that was random tangent, but it does go to show that you can build something outside of the current like
the club basically.
organization of like Twitch streamers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's crazy. It's like, you know, one thing Twitch is lagging behind YouTube though is that we don't do Twitch boxing matches. The beef hasn't gotten that big. People to like start doing
First Eagle. Let's go.
that. You know, believe it or not, a random person one time just told Vosh that I wanted to box him. And
Really?
yeah, and Vosh was like, "Oh, I would destroy him."
Oh
So the
my
person came to me and I messaged them and I was like, "Hey, I heard you wanted to box. Um, you know,
no
I can do it like 2 weeks or a month from now."
no way.
And he didn't respond. And then like the next day, someone asked him, and he was on stream. He was like, "Yeah, oh yeah, Infrared did message me, but he sent some kind of like weird sexual shit." And I had to literally show my chat the DMs to prove he was lying. Isn't that so fucked up? It's like,
You'd say that.
yeah,
Of
I
course.
literally just told him, I was like, "Yeah, I'll box you
You're
like
like,
in 2 weeks."
no way. That would be funny as hell. How tall are you?
Well, he says he's 6'2", but the thing is I don't know if that's the case. He took a photo with like Tim Pool, and he didn't. It didn't seem like he could be more than an inch taller than Tim Pool.
How tall are you?
I'm only 5'9", but I think he's only five. I think at most he's 5'11". He could even be 5'10", but
You got the speed though. You got the speed. The
yeah,
flow.
yeah. I mean, whether I'll win or not, I don't know. Maybe I'll
Do you
lose, but I'll do it. You know, it's content.
do you box?
No, I mean, not box, but I have experience in martial arts.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
So
it's
yeah,
similar principles, I
I think
guess.
I would like learn to box in like 2 weeks or something, and I yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be enough, obviously, but it's content.
It's content. It's
Yeah,
content. Boxing's fun though.
yeah, yeah,
Like, I don't know. I could definitely get into that. That'd be lit. I
yeah.
guess we'll have to pioneer all of it. We're gonna
Well,
think
I
about it.
guess the beef has to like escalate so much that it
The beef's already there.
becomes
Dude
that.
fucking call me a Nazi. The beef's already there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Oh
yeah,
wow,
bro.
that's
Well,
incredible.
I think I'm gonna close. I know I'm weak. I only go for like 2 hours. I'm gonna close out the rest of my stream here, cover some news stories. But thank
Yeah,
you so much for joining me. I
I
had a great
appreciate it,
time.
man. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to end it in like 30 minutes too. But yeah, great talking to you, man. Um,
Yeah, I'm sure we'll do more stuff in the future together.
yeah, definitely, definitely. All right, man. See you later.
All right, peace.
Man. Oh. How based is Jackson, guys? One of the most based people on the internet, honestly. Great guy, great guy.